Hi everyone, and welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. Today I have to tell you, I'm with an extraordinary person. I've had the great privilege of meeting GEAROID TOWEY for a few times now. I've been able to study with him and we're doing a program together. This guy is at a whole other level. So what I'm going to do is introduce GEAROID, and he's just going to tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll get the interview underway. You're going to love this. Stay tuned, and here we go. So welcome, GEAROID. Thank you for being in the interview. So can you tell us a bit about you and what you do?
Okay, well, I'm from Ireland originally. I'm a former Olympic rower and adventurer, so I was on the Irish rowing team for about 16 years. Did have 4 Olympic Games, loads of world championships, training like a hamster for that length of time. Had a bit of success. I won a couple of world championships, and I've been to 4 games, so that was an incredible experience for me.
So that's interesting. So I don't know anybody, I have to say, that's done not 1 Olympics, not 2, not 3, but 4 Olympic Games. So effectively that's 16 years of hard training, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Can you tell the viewer there what event that you were in, and what it's kind of like, if you had to sum it up in what your event is like at competition level and at training level?
Okay. Well, rowing's a funny sport because it's only 2,000 meters long. All the races are 2,000 meters, but the pain and effort that you've got to go through in that length of time is extraordinary. So we have to prepare for hours for that. So in terms of for a 6-minute race, we do 6 hours training per day on average. So lots of long distance, get the base big, get the aerobic capacity big, and then we have to really work on our anaerobic state as well. So we're training 2 body systems effectively over time. So we have to train as much as a cyclist does. So we spend long hours in the boat, long hours lifting weights, all that kind of stuff. So it's very much a lifestyle.
That's amazing.
And the racing was very intense. It was 6 to 7 minutes depending on your boat type. So I did 4s and doubles, and singles as well. So singles race would take about 7 minutes, a 4s race would take about 6 minutes, and so for that amount of time you're going absolutely as hard as you can, and you're in the red zone after 1 minute, and you've got to really train your body and your mind to deal with the pain.
That's amazing. So let's just think of this for a second. So what GEAROID is telling us, that the race is at 7 minutes. It's 2,000 meters in length, and after the first minute, he's already in the red zone. So the rest of the 6 minutes of what he's doing is trying to figure out how to keep it together, not only mentally, I'm figuring, right, but physically as well, because the body's already in the red zone on the first minute. So it's interesting. I'm just going to kind of bring this down into business, because I was talking to a guy not long ago that's a friend of mine out of New Zealand, and he was saying that a lot of his staff, what they do is they actually do long distance training, whether it's swimming, cycling, rowing, running, whatever it might be. And the reason being is, he said, as a business owner, what you need to do, it's equivalent to running ultra long marathon, or in your case it's rowing as well. So what I'm going to ask you about in a minute is just what mindset did you have to bring to that every day for 16 years, and then at competition level, and how has it worked for you where it comes to business? How have you been able to use that or not use that into business?
Yeah, well, it's all a process of adaptation, I can see. So when I was quite young, you're doing it because you don't really know any different, and you do the races and you go through the pain and whatnot because when you're young, you have this kind of gung-ho attitude, and you just do it. You don't even think about it. But as you get older, it gets a bit harder to put yourself through that time after time after time.
Because you know what's kind of coming up, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So your mindset has to shift, and what you do end up doing is you end up educating yourself on how your body and your mind works. So you know that when you get to a certain time, so after that 1 minute mark when you're in the red, you know that you're able to deal with it because you've dealt with it in training before, you've dealt with it in racing.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's a process of
adaptation, I suppose,
and knowing that you will adapt.
Yeah, go.
So throughout my rowing career, I had experiences of that, of just basically taking yourself out of your head and trying to lead with your stomach, with your intuition, with your gut, and just kind of know that you can do this, so that there's a process where your mind jumps in with that 1 minute gone and goes, I can't do this, I'm not able to do this, these guys are going much better than I am, they're stronger than I am. There's a fleeting moment where that happens.
Oh, well, okay, so that actually happens,
It
right?
happens,
Okay,
happens there and then, you know, but you actually have to you have to basically tell your head to shut up.
Yeah.
And just keep going with what you've trained, because you've trained here, because you know because your gut's been telling you that you know you've been doing the right thing, you're born to do this, you're doing the right thing at the right time, you really want to be a champion.
So I suppose one of the keys there is, GEAROID, is to not always take what the mind is telling you as
absolutely
as truth. Like from a business perspective, the way I look at this is I'm going to use the negative mindsets or the lies that your mind tells you that you're not good enough, or this isn't going to happen, or don't take a risk, or any of these things aren't necessarily the truth of it, right? Because you've trained to do this event, so you've got no problem because you've physically done it over and over and over again.
Exactly,
right?
and the hard thing was actually deleting the mind chatter. So, for instance, I've done races where, like, I felt really ready physically and mentally, and I haven't gone as well. You know, and I've done races where I've been feeling physically okay, but my mind is being all over the place. It's been telling me that I can't do it, and I've gone out and I've done really well.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So basically, it's if you put yourself in the right place at the right time. If you're there about to do it, it means that you are in the right place.
Yeah,
you know. So and you've actually prepared to be there. Yeah.
So everything's led up to that. That means that you're ready for that.
Exactly, and then there's a recognition that everything is hard. So like everything meaningful is difficult, right? So going to the Olympic Games and racing is a very, very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And beforehand is very difficult.
Yeah.
But the rewards afterwards.
And there's no easy road to it, right?
Exactly. It's the adaptation. It's the jumping in and going for it. You know, that's the hard bit. It's just a jump. It's like going to the beach and wanting to go in the water. You're like, oh, it's going to be really cold at the beginning. But then afterwards you're fine.
Then you're fine, okay. You know, that's a great mindset.
It's the same with this. The pre-bit is the worst because your head is doing all the chattering.
Yeah.
But once you're in it,
you're good to go.
You're doing what you're born to do.
Yeah, got you. That's interesting. And I'm just wondering, GEAROID, if you can tell us a bit about what you do now. And I'm gonna say, I mean, you're a champion global athlete at a whole other level. I mean, on top of this, by the way, GEAROID hasn't told us what he's done, so I'm just going to quickly share it before he goes into the business part. And GEAROID, just tell us what you rode a boat across the...
Yeah, well, this is a big story. So
yeah, if you could tell us like a summary of it.
Yeah, well, I've always had this sense of adventure as a kid, and I realised kind of during my rowing career that it wasn't adventurous enough for me at one point, and I decided to take a year off and just get out of the humdrum and go and do an expedition to row across the Atlantic. It was like a boy's own adventure, something I always wanted to do since I was a kid. Yeah. Don't know why, but it was just I had this sense of adventure in me.
So you rowed across the Atlantic?
Well, myself and another guy, we set off to row across the Atlantic. We were out there for 40 days, so 6 weeks at sea, rowing 2 hours on, 2 hours off all the way. So this whole process of adaptation again.
That's incredible.
You know, the body did adapt to it, which is the other thing. Is like your body and mind does adapt to whatever situation it's in.
Yeah,
which is a key part of the work I'm doing at the moment. But after 6 weeks, we got hit by a huge storm and got capsized by a massive 10-meter wave.
Oh wow!
And then we were suddenly switched from being adventurers into survivors within the space of a half a second.
Wow. Okay. So once again, that's having to do with what gets thrown at you. In business, often we set out to do the right thing, but something comes up that we didn't expect, right?
And then it's our response that's the actual key to it.
The response is the key to it.
So we can either respond in the victim sense and be like, oh my god, this is what happened to me, this is awful. Yeah. Or you can respond and kind of go, well, this is part of the adventure. You know, this is me, say if you're an entrepreneur and you have a business and something goes wrong, rather than see yourself as the victim, as say, well, this is part of being an entrepreneur, this is part of the adventure. So
that's a great way to see it. It's almost like reframing it, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's funny, I had an interview that probably you guys watched with Bernadette McClellan, and it was really funny. She said, you know, we were bankrupt and basically we had to declare bankruptcy. And she said it was the first time that we've been ever debt-free. Yeah. So what an interesting reframe. She goes, we could always build from that. Most people are devastated with it. She said, we're kind of debt free, right?
Yeah,
yeah. So tell us a bit about what you're doing now with your business, and maybe what a couple of challenges that you may find in business that. As an athlete, you've dealt at that level and you understand those challenges, but here's a new set of challenges that might be a bit different for you now. So.
Yeah, well, my career. So I finished rowing at the Beijing Games, and my career trajectory from there went from I went from being an athlete to going to London for a year and training to be an actor. It was again something I really wanted to do, so I treated it as a kind of a year off, I guess.
Yeah.
Went and trained in acting, absolutely loved it. Then I realised that it wasn't going to pay me any money.
Yeah,
so then
unless you're a mega star.
Exactly,
right?
yeah. I wasn't really willing to go to LA and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just then I decided, okay, what's my passion? What am I connected to here, and how can I make money from it? And that was adventure. So I started an adventure events company,
cool.
which basically organises events for like hundreds and thousands of people. So basically anything from a 10k fun run to a 55k ultra night hike at winter, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I went, and I guess, and then throughout all that, I was actually moving through a process of transition myself from athlete to civilian, which I found extremely hard, like surprisingly, because I really wanted to leave my sport, and then found that quite difficult, kind of emotionally and kind of stability wise, identity wise.
Yeah.
And then I started to kind of move into that space of helping other athletes to transition. So I've been speaking and workshopping with athletes around that area, kind of
transition.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's been one side, and the other side has been I've got a corporate training business as well that I co-own. So we basically use the physical realm, to get groups in the physical realm, get them to open their potential a little bit. So they do a physical event, and afterwards their confidence level is up, and the conversations that they can have are much better than ones they had before.
Yeah, that's excellent.
So we bring them into the magic space, and then we workshop them in there. So it's sort of a fun team-based activity, melded with really meaningful training.
Oh wow, that's awesome. So it's interesting. I mean, let's think about this. Someone like GEAROID has 4 Olympic Games, rows across the Atlantic, and then finds it, the transition really difficult to go from, as he's saying, a superior athlete into the everyday civilian. And that's an interesting perspective, because a lot of business owners that I speak to have also had the transition from being in one type of business, maybe it's failed and then they're trying to get into something else, or they go and try to work in a job that just doesn't happen because it doesn't kind of suit them or who they are, and then they're always really, really challenged to try to get back into the workforce or back into their business. I've had mums that have looked after a family, even fathers that have looked after a family for 3 or 4 years or 5 years that have sold their business to do that. Then they're really starting the game again. Right? So I can see how I resonate with that, and I think the service that you're offering is fantastic. So I'm just wondering, just to kind of wrap this up, I'm just wondering if you can give us 2 tips, of the audience at home, what they could implement into their business from everything that you've done. And also if you can then just share where people can check you out, and if they want to know a little bit more about your business and a bit more about your life and everything that you do, if you could share that with us.
Okay. Well, two tips. So one the most important would be around that concept of transition. So it's looking at transition as an adventure rather than being a victim of it. So if something happens so that you're forced into transition, or if you volunteer for transition but then find out that it's not what you imagined, which is often the case, try and look at it as part of the adventure. It's a stage on the way. It's
of life.
Exactly, it's a stage of you transitioning into whatever you want to be. It's
so often the uncomfortable is a part of the process.
Exactly, it's like training for the Olympics. The Olympics is great, but the bit beforehand, most of it is actually not
what is it?
6
minutes. 4 years is over in 6 minutes.
Yeah, you don't see the rowing in the salt, or sorry, the frosting crusted clothes,
exactly,
in the darkness. So this is what I mean. So there's always if you transition from being in a job to kind of owning your own business, you're going to have that block of work that's really hard and
Yeah.
stuff, but try and see
It's a part
that
of the process.
as part of the adventure.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
So
yeah,
like
yeah.
everyththing worthwhile has that hard bit also.
Yeah, yeah,
So like everything's
yeah.
not coded in
Yeah.
in thing.
In
And
gold,
then-
right? Yeah, yeah.
exactly. And the other tip I'd have is that if you're feeling yourself lethargic, if you're feeling that your workforce are showing up to work but they aren't performing as well, or they're a bit kind of downbeat, then do something that brings them into their bodies. Bring them into their physical self, because when you bring people into their physical selves and they do something that challenges them, when they move out of their comfort zone a little bit, then they move into a learning zone. They start to learn new stuff about themselves that they never knew before.
Oh, yeah, that's a great idea.
And the old world order is shifted. And it's the same for you if you're a business owner. Constantly look to try and move out of your comfort zone, because you learn all the time.
It gives you a new set point once again, right?
Exactly.
So for me, if I had to hop in a boat, you'd probably go, okay, we'll row 100 metres. We've got that over, let's row 200 and slowly build that up. Or, if I'm X amount of fitness, you'd go, let's push it beyond that boundary. But I suppose what you're saying is you've got to make sure that comes with a self of accomplishment. And even if you don't achieve that, you try again until you achieve it again and again and again, right?
Exactly. Just keep
Keep
pushing,
layering it, basically.
Yeah, keep layering it, and the least or the worst thing that can happen is that you'll have fun.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Well, it's interesting, how many business owners, when they work with me, a lot of the times what I do is I say, are you exercising? Are you getting out there? Are you doing something that's putting you out of your comfort zone? And the reason being is if you're a business and you're running at mediocre, if okay is good enough, well, I mean, there's somebody around the corner that's working at a high level that's going to overtake it. So what I say is, I believe the best of business is done when you're on the edge of victory, or on the edge of failure, literally. So because that gives you the ability to go to that next level.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. So so just keep pushing that. I know it can be scary, but fear is something that always precedes greatness.
Yeah,
you
that's
can't
a great
be great
tip.
unless you actually have felt that.
Yeah, that's a great tip. And I'm wondering, GEAROID, where can people get in contact with you or check you out or any of that stuff? So.
Okay, so I've got two websites. One is my own personal website, so it's GEAROIDTOWEY.com. So it's GEAR.
Yeah.
So
there it is. There. Yeah, and I'll put it up there. Cool.
Yeah, .com,
Yeah.
and then I've got also my the corporate training and leadership development business I have is 3spheres.com.au.
3spheres.com.au. I'll make sure that's on there. Well, thank you once again. Thanks for joining us. This is an incredible series. I've had an amazing amount of feedback of businesses that have checked this out. Thank you, GEAROID. I mean, this is an interview of a lifetime, I have to say. For me, I'm hanging out with an ordinary person that has done extraordinary things. I mean, just think about it. 4 Olympic Games, rows across the Atlantic. He's in business now. I get to hang out with him, so life is good for everyone. So thank you, mate. I appreciate it. And stay tuned. We'll catch you on the next Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things.